Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Justine Valdez. Justine Valdez was born in 1993 in Aritao, a town situated 255 kilometers north of the Filipino capital Manila. She was the only child of Teresita and Danilo Valdez, also known as Tess and Danny. Justine attended St. Teresita's Academy, a Catholic secondary school in her hometown of Aritao. While Teresita and Danilo had moved to Ireland for work, Justine remained in the Philippines with family. In 2015, her parents were able to bring Justine to Ireland, and the family settled in the small village of Enniscar in County Wicklow, near the Dublin-Wicklow border. After arriving in Ireland, Justine immediately began working, studying, and building a life for herself. She was extremely close to both of her parents and maintained constant contact with them when she wasn't at home. Justine was studying accountancy at IT Talat and worked 2 part-time jobs as a care worker and as a waitress in a cafe in the bustling coastal town of Bray. In November 2017, Justine began a relationship with Joseph Squire. Joseph later described Justine as being happy and active, saying she never got up to any mischief. She was way too innocent for that. He added that she was literally the most innocent person I ever met in my life, and I will never forget her. On May 19, 2018, 24-year-old Justine Valdez spent her afternoon with a routine she was familiar with. After completing paperwork for her residency permit, she went to the gym for a workout, wrapping up around 4:20 p.m. Justine then planned to head home, and her mother, Teras, sent her a quick text asking her to pick up some bread on the way. Justine obliged, making a stop at the store before catching the 185 bus bound for Bray, departing after 6 p.m. The bus dropped her off at the village of Enniscar, a familiar stop near her rural home. From there, a 15 to 20-minute walk typically separated her from her doorstep. This journey, though not arduous for a young and active woman like Justine, became fraught with worry when she failed to return home. Teras, accustomed to Justine's punctuality and communication, grew increasingly anxious as time passed without word from her daughter. Calls and messages went unanswered, prompting Teras to venture out in search of Justine. She scoured the streets, stopping strangers to inquire about her daughter's distinct Asian features and sporty attire, which stood out in the crowd. Despite sightings of Justine disembarking the bus, her whereabouts remained a mystery. Teres's frantic search yielded no answers, leaving her with mounting fear and uncertainty about where Justine had gone and what could have befallen her on her seemingly routine journey home. With each passing moment, Teres's worry deepened, driving her to scour the streets for her daughter and any potential witnesses. Justine's disappearance left her mother in a state of distress, unable to find any trace of her daughter. In desperation, she reached out to the police to report the situation. Detectives promptly took her statement and initiated a search for Justine. At 5:20 p.m., Justine, still wearing her gym clothes, took the 185 bus from Bray to Enniscar village, arriving at approximately 6 p.m. From there, she had a 15 to 20-minute walk until she reached home. It was a journey she would never have a chance to complete. Despite their humble beginnings, Justine's parents worked tirelessly to support her education and livelihood. Justine's parents worked as a gardener and housekeeper, respectively. Justine herself was known for her reliability, hard work, and dedication to her obligations. Given her strong ties to her family and her commitment to her responsibilities, no one believed she would willingly abandon her loved ones. Furthermore, her limited social circle and absence of typical teenage rebellious behavior made the idea of her running away seem implausible. Despite contacting all of Justine's acquaintances, none could provide insight into her whereabouts. At 24, Justine had outgrown any inclination for teenage defiance, remaining a steadfast and devoted member of her family until her sudden disappearance. Hence, the possibility of Justine running away was swiftly dismissed. She maintained an unwavering connection with her parents, updating them on her every move. On the particular day, she and her mother exchanged a staggering 63 messages, the last being at 6:24 p.m., when Justine alighted from the bus. As detectives diligently investigated leads to determine Justine's whereabouts, a crucial tip emerged from her co-workers. Shortly after Justine's bus stop, authorities were notified of a disturbing incident. A female motorist reported witnessing a man forcibly pushing an Asian woman with dark hair, dressed in sportswear similar to Justine's, into the trunk of a black Nissan Qashqai. The woman recounted her harrowing experience, driving past the suspicious scene with her 12-year-old son and promptly alerting the police. Shortly after, another motorist passed by and witnessed a similarly distressing scene. This time, an Asian girl was seen seated in the back of the vehicle, tapping on the window in evident fear. Initially perplexed, the driver later discussed the incident with his wife. Upon returning home and realizing the gravity of the situation, he promptly contacted the authorities at 7:20 p.m. to report the suspected kidnapping. Another concerned driver also contacted the police, citing a suspicious Nissan vehicle driving erratically approximately 6 kilometers from Enniscar. Patrol officers swiftly responded to the location provided by the initial female caller. There they discovered Justine's broken cell phone and a bag of bread abandoned on the roadside, raising alarming concerns for her safety. Armed with this disturbing evidence, investigators concluded that the kidnapper had targeted Justine as she made her way home from the bus stop. After initial attempts to conceal her in the trunk were thwarted by Justine's resistance, the suspect forced her into the back seat before driving off to an unknown destination. The suspect's black Nissan was promptly added to the wanted list, prompting an extensive search effort involving patrol cars and helicopters. However, the night made the search more difficult, resulting in no result. When day broke, the search resumed, with detectives revisiting eyewitness testimonies and narrowing down potential suspects. One individual, 40-year-old Mark Hennessy, emerged as a person of interest due to his resemblance to the kidnapper's description. Police officers visited his residence, only to find his wife Nicola unaware of his whereabouts since he left for a drink after work the previous day. This information only raised more suspicions surrounding Mark, prompting investigators to delve further into his background. Mark Hennessy appeared to be a pillar of the community, widely regarded as a devoted family man, husband, and father to 2 young daughters, the youngest born just 8 months prior. Hailing from a respected family, he resided in an affluent neighborhood alongside other young families. Mark's occupation as an estimator on construction sites provided a stable income for his family, and he boasted a clean record with no prior brushes with the law. Despite his seemingly impeccable reputation, law enforcement remained cognizant of the unsettling reality that individuals may conceal darker motives beneath a veneer of respectability. With this in mind, the police officers visited the bar that Mark had frequented the previous night to gather more information. The staff confirmed his presence, but noted that his stay was brief. He had left after consuming a single beer and watching some soccer. Unimpressed by the excitement of the match, Mark's return to the bar around midnight appeared to be marked by visible agitation and unease. Upon reviewing the bar's CCTV footage, investigators corroborated the staff's accounts, observing that Mark's stay was approximately 10 minutes before he departed at around 5:40 p.m. Engrossed in a phone conversation, he quickly made his way to his car and drove off, concluding his visit around 11:30 p.m. Interestingly, upon leaving the bar, Mark actually returned and engaged in a conversation with an acquaintance at the doorway before leaving once again. Detectives found themselves puzzled by Mark's whereabouts between 5:40 p.m. and 11 p.m., and the nature of his activities during this time remained a mystery. By this point, investigators had acquired CCTV footage from the bus route Justine had taken, and upon examination, a disturbing revelation emerged. Mark's black Nissan had trailed the bus just 30 minutes after he left the bar, shadowing its movements throughout the day. This revelation heightened suspicions surrounding his involvement, especially in relation to Justine's disappearance. The search for Mark's car and the missing girl persisted unabated, with growing certainty that the 2 incidents were intertwined. Mark emerged as a prime suspect in Justine's abduction, Despite efforts to track his cell phone, which intermittently powered on and off, Mark managed to evade detection. He made a solitary call to his wife, informing her of his continued absence. Even when confronted by his own family, who pleaded with him to surrender to the authorities, Mark remained obstinate and promptly departed. Mark's parents relayed this encounter to investigators, prompting renewed efforts to locate him. However, Mark remained elusive, staying a step ahead of law enforcement. In a bid for public assistance, the police issued appeals through the media, urging anyone with knowledge of Justine, Mark, or his car's whereabouts to come forward. One listener heeded this call, spotting a similar Nissan cash car on the road with a familiar-looking driver behind the wheel. Sensing an opportunity, she followed the vehicle to Cherrywood Park, where she observed the driver closely before promptly notifying the authorities. Upon arrival, the responding police officers encountered a man seated behind the wheel, his body covered in blood. Despite their attempts to coax him out of the vehicle, Mark remained obstinate, brandishing a knife in a menacing manner. Faced with imminent danger, the officers were compelled to resort to the use of firearms, resulting in a bullet striking Mark in the shoulder. Removing him from the car, they discovered him conscious, though uncooperative. As they commenced their examination of the vehicle, their hopes of locating the missing girl were dashed, as Justine was nowhere to be found. Persistent questioning yielded no answers from Mark, who maintained a steadfast silence. Medical personnel promptly attended to him, and he was swiftly transported to the hospital, where doctors battled to save his life, clinging to the hope that he might divulge Justine's whereabouts. Tragically, it was revealed that the bullet had tragically ricocheted, fatally striking Mark in the head. Subsequent investigations unearthed the grim truth. The blood adorning his face and body belonged to him, and he bore several fresh stab wounds on his arm and neck. Law enforcement speculated that, consumed by fear of exposure, Mark had chosen to confront his fate with the knife, conveniently stashed in his vehicle. When the police finally apprehended him, there was a sense of disappointment pervading the air. Despite successfully locating the suspect and his vehicle, their primary objective of finding the missing person remained unfulfilled. However, a note was discovered, its contents obscured by bloodstains. Through the haze of crimson, officers managed to discern the words "sorry" and "Puck's Castle," hinting at a potential lead to Justine's whereabouts. Though hope flickered dimly, they persevered in their search, while the anxious parents fervently prayed for their daughter's safe return. A meticulous search unfolded in a wooded expanse south of Dublin, guided by the cryptic clue near the castle. Initially, Justine's purse containing her identification documents was unearthed. Then, on May 21st, a grim discovery was made: the lifeless body of Justine Valdez. Autopsy revealed the horrific truth that she had been murdered on the very evening of her abduction, succumbing to manual strangulation. Tragically, evidence of sexual assault further compounded the brutality of her demise. However, amidst the sorrow and despair, another unsettling revelation emerged. Toxicological analysis unveiled the presence of prohibited substances in Justine's body. This posed a puzzling enigma, as there was no clear explanation for the origin or purpose of these substances. Conversely, the analysis found that Mark had ingested a significant quantity of these substances, further deepening the mystery surrounding the tragic events. It emerged that Mark had recently spiraled into alcohol and substance abuse, likely contributing to the presence of these substances in Justine's system. Concurrently, his domestic life had deteriorated, with frequent spats between him and his spouse over his substance abuse and mounting debts. Investigations revealed Mark's engagement with the dating app Tinder, where he actively pursued interactions with various women, including flirting with female patrons at bars. Further incriminating evidence emerged when Mark's DNA was found on the victim's body, reinforcing the police's suspicions about his involvement in Justine's abduction and subsequent murder. Detectives pieced together a disturbing narrative. The murder was driven by sexual motives, and Justine became an unwitting victim in Mark's sinister pursuit of prey. Spotting her while following a bus, he seized the opportunity in broad daylight, brazenly abducting her from the street without hesitation, even in the presence of multiple witnesses. A thorough examination of the victims' and perpetrators' phones revealed no prior acquaintance or communication between them. Their paths had never crossed before, with no mutual connections to bridge the gap between victim and assailant. This grim revelation underscored the tragic randomness of Justine's fate and the calculated brutality of Mark's actions. Upon closer scrutiny, the detective's initial assessment underwent a significant shift. It transpired that Mark was intimately familiar with the route Justine frequently traversed, suggesting a premeditated nature to her murder. Far from a spur-of-the-moment act, Mark had been meticulously observing her movements, biding his time until he deemed it opportune to strike. The day of the abduction marked a deliberate departure from his usual routine, as he purposefully positioned himself at the bus stop, tailing Justine's every move until he pounced on her unsuspecting victim. The revelation sent shockwaves through the local community, unaccustomed to such heinous acts in their otherwise tranquil neighborhood. Many rallied around the grieving family, offering solace and support during their time of immense loss. At the farewell ceremony, poignant tributes were paid as white balloons soared into the sky, symbolizing hope amidst despair. Some attendees donned pink t-shirts emblazoned with Justine's likeness, a touching homage to her memory. Ultimately, Justine's family chose to lay her to rest in her native Philippines, seeking solace in familiar surroundings. Though they initially remained abroad for a period, they eventually returned to Ireland in 2021, seeking a fresh start and new opportunities. Relocating to a different city and pursuing new occupations offered a chance to heal from the harrowing memories that haunted them in their former home. Mark Hennessy exhibited the characteristic behavior of a serial sex offender. They concluded that although his crime seemed spontaneous and unplanned, he displayed the traits of someone who had committed such acts multiple times previously. In the early days of the investigation, it emerged that a man matching Hennessy's age and physical description had been harassing female passengers at train stations in South County, Dublin, over several years, including exposing himself to them. However, there is no definitive proof that Hennessy and the serial harasser were the same person. We will likely never know, as Mark Hennessy's secrets died with him. The Abril Perez case unveils layers of tragedy and mystery, set against the backdrop of a Mexican night where stars shine brightly, yet secrets linger in the shadows. This story revolves around Abril, whose life became a series of unfortunate events. The case progressed slowly. It took months before the first suspects were captured. The Secretary General of the Mexican Security Council, Omar Garcia, announced that on March 5, 2020, 2 individuals connected to this crime were detained. He made it clear that all detainees had been identified and were under investigation. The initial suspects were Juan Carlos Rodriguez Ortiz, the car driver, and Rodolfo Daniel Bandera Sandoval, also known as Changa Leon, who was identified as the shooter. These 2 became prime suspects post their arrests. Abril's family insisted on Juan Carlos's arrest, believing him to be the crime's orchestrator. Following an attack on Abril, judges who had initially freed Juan returned to work but faced suspension again due to public outrage. After 7 months, on October 28, 2 more suspects were detained: Oscar, known as El Oso, and Alejandro, known as El Corral. El Corral was arrested with his girlfriend, Magda Carina. In her bag were found 3 packets of illegal substances alongside a weapon and weighing scales for narcotics. El Oso was apprehended at his home, where police discovered 182 doses of illegal substances, guns, and 300 rounds of large-caliber ammunition. These detainees belonged to a gang led by Juan Carlos Maldon, also known as Juan Balta, who was later arrested too. Known as a trusted leader within one of Mexico City's most notorious gangs, he was found in possession of significant quantities of illegal substances during his capture. Court records indicated that Juan Balta met Juan Carlos while in prison, offering protection for money. After his release, Juan continued receiving financial aid from Balta. It is believed that Juan Carlos sought Balta's assistance to arrange the murder of two people who threatened his ex-wife's life. Abril Perez's tale is equally heart-wrenching. Born in Monterrey in 1971, Abril grew up under challenging circumstances with her mother Maria del Suero, tirelessly working to secure the best education in life for Abril and her siblings, Javier and Ana. Despite hardships, Abril excelled academically with a clear goal: achieving financial independence through education. As she matured into an intelligent and altruistic woman with notable leadership qualities, she pursued higher education rigorously. She earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Nuevo León and later acquired her master's degree in business from Monterrey Institute of Science and Technology. Her career flourished in digital sales, where she rose swiftly to hold an executive director position at Bilbao Bank in America by the early 1990s. During this prosperous phase in her career, Abril met Juan Carlos Garcia Sanchez, a driven entrepreneur born on November 11, 1968. Sharing many academic accolades and professional aspirations, Juan also graduated from Monterrey Institute like Abril and furthered his studies at prestigious institutes such as the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard. Both driven by ambition and intellect, quickly grew close both personally and professionally. They collaborated on several projects while nurturing friendships within shared social circles. Over time, their camaraderie blossomed into love, leading them down the aisle together in 1994. Together, they spearheaded numerous successful ventures, including PAG Mobile and Plascom online stores. Their combined efforts contributed significantly towards establishing DM Store as a leading e-commerce entity in Mexico by 1999. The couple's life appeared to be a genuine fairy tale. Both achieved remarkable successes in their careers and were blissful together. Their joy amplified in 2001 with the birth of their first daughter, Ana Cecilia. 2 years later, they welcomed a son, Juan Carlos Jr., and in 2005, another son, Julio Andres, was born. Despite her busy schedule, Abril always made time for her children, personally attending to their needs and school. Her dedication earned admiration from everyone around her. Juan Carlos was also seen as an exemplary father. Together, they cultivated an ideal family that many envied. But the reality was different. During that period, the family faced substantial challenges, suffering from Juan's short temper. He had a volatile nature and could unleash his anger on anyone around him. Initially, it began with verbal abuse. Juan made Abril uncomfortable with hurtful insults. Gradually, the situation worsened as he started using physical violence, regularly beating his wife. Abril tried to conceal it from friends and family because she believed staying with Juan would secure the best future for their children. By 2009, others began suspecting something was wrong at home due to Abril's evident depression and visible bruises. However, despite inquiries about a possible divorce, she insisted on staying with her husband. The situation continued to get worse up until 2014. Despite Juan Carlos reaching the pinnacle of his career in 2014, as an influential figure in the Amazon retail industry in Mexico, turmoil persisted within the family. By 2015, his new role as Amazon director necessitated a move to Mexico City, a change that did not solve their problems. The abuse continued daily while he maintained a facade of being a loving husband and father publicly. Juan Carlos often shared social media posts calling Abril the love of his life, while privately controlling and accusing her of infidelity, even hiring a detective to prove it. His career soared while his marriage crumbled before his eyes. By 2018, tensions between him and Abril were unbearable. Despite her efforts to maintain family unity after a trip to Monterrey for Christmas celebrations with her family in 2018, an incident made her realize she could no longer continue living with him. During this visit, and driven by irrational rage, Juan strangled Abril after receiving misleading photos from a private investigator, falsely implying an affair with a colleague. On January 4, 2019, Abril finally decided enough was enough and filed for divorce. Early one morning, not long after this decision, while asleep, Abril awoke from severe blows to her head inflicted by Juan wielding a baseball bat. thinking initially that perhaps something catastrophic like ceiling collapse must have occurred, only soon recognizing it was indeed her husband assaulting her maliciously. Attempting desperately but unsuccessfully fleeing, whilst calling out loud, attracting attention, ultimately saved by eldest son, then 16 years old, who intervened preventing further harm, whisking mother off hospital, seeking urgent medical treatment given extensive injuries sustained. Subsequently, following these harrowing events, Juan engaged heavily online, alleging numerous accusations against estranged wife, including infidelity, theft, alongside bizarre claims wounded by stabbing, even posting graphic images incriminatingly, albeit deceptively manipulative, stirring confusion, disbelief, widely questioning veracity, credibility, amidst alarmingly strange, unsupported assertions. Curiously culminating contradictorily, stating sensationally, considerably fabricated declaration, preposterously claiming own premature demise, astonishingly baffling, many, since plainly alive, concerned, reflecting potential underlying complexities, yet conspicuously revealing tragically profound adverse impact, profoundly affecting gravely matters warranting earnest consideration, reflective deliberation, insight, acknowledging persistently injustice, undeniably suffered, profoundly consequentially induced, primarily generated, systematically, intentionally premeditated abusive conduct behavior, regrettably adversely experienced, enriched perspective, understanding eloquently articulated herein, professionally gravitating, empathetic recognition, importance, human, judicious appreciating, jointly, responsibly, collectively, fostering principled integrity, social positive transformation, conducive, harmonious, peaceful, equitable coexistence, pivotal, quintessential, consequential, imperative. After being discharged from the hospital, Abril immediately filed a police report against her husband. Authorities granted her custody of her 2 children. Juan Carlos was ordered to pay alimony of 6,000 Mexican pesos per month, about $350. However, this amount did not cover the costs of raising 2 young children. Despite these financial difficulties and the fear of her husband, Abril decided to start a new chapter in her life and was determined not to be discouraged for the sake of her children. Subsequently, Abril and her children moved to Monterrey. From there, she observed the trial against Juan Carlos and filed for divorce. After enduring such a traumatic experience and constant abuse, she began rethinking her life decisions. She joined a Christian group dedicated to protecting families and started working as a divorce counselor. Her goal was to create an organization that would help women who had been abused like she had been. Thanks to such an organization, Abril herself managed to heal and even forgave her ex-husband. While she was striving to rebuild her life, the lawsuit against Juan continued. After 9 long months following the attack, authorities charged him with attempted murder. The case went to court where Judge Federico Mask decided on an informal arrest for Juan. Thus, he was taken into custody for several weeks. However, Juan appealed the verdict, and on November 3, 2019, another judge, named Hector Jimenez, reclassified the crime. He opined that photographs from the hospital and testimonies from Abril and her son were insufficient to prove Juan's guilt definitively. Moreover, he believed that Juan did not intend to kill Abril, otherwise he would have succeeded. According to the judge, the baseball bat used in the attack was not considered a weapon suitable for murder. Consequently, the case no longer qualified as femicide, and Juan's preliminary arrest was canceled. There were only a few hearings left in Juan's trial. The outcome remained uncertain, causing increasing anxiety and frustration for Abril, her family, and friends. Desperately seeking relief, Abril wrote a letter to the judge pleading for consideration of her fears for her safety. She firmly believed Juan posed a real threat, but received no response to her plea. Following this development, Juan Carlos was released from custody and began actively fighting for custody of his children. Abril had no choice but to leave Monterrey and travel to Mexico City frequently for all hearings related to their case, and subjected her children to psychological evaluations because Juan Carlos claimed she had turned them against him. This supposedly explained why they wanted nothing more than distance from their father forever again. A week before crucial hearing session date drew near, the crucial one. Abril gathered 3 kids, telling them how much love felt, pushing each towards dreams' fulfillment while urging strength needed forgiveness. Side note, relatable indeed. On November 25th, in compliance throughout with ex's instructions, avoiding legal tangles, separating loved ones altogether, arrived Mexico City, intended meeting, taking place same day when thousands, women marked street celebration, Anti-Gender Violence Day, globally impactful symbol, indeed reflecting broader struggle ongoingly seen. Meanwhile, yes, continuing relentless fight, march, so to speak, right? Time passed until March 19th next year, bringing turning point, judicial-wise canceling previous handling actions, revisiting the settling attempted murder. Abril reinstated following collective push, relatives prosecution line formal appeals requiring plus subsequent petitions array highlighting repetition involving case assuring dominion. Finally May settled arrests, finalized trio women Solomon rounding elements critical search warrants, altogether findings detailed captured each identified notably care overall, background thoroughness punctuate course interims pan explaining prosecutor touching essence clarifications, juxtaposing initial attempt, comparably then elevating upholding right societal realms, subsequently prompted sweeping comprehensive research, yielding vital breakthrough imperative efforts nearing affirmative closure, integrity bind scrutinizing laying hopper diverse parallel obligations extended Rawls pursuit persistently subsequently engaged recognized alias Shalon loop continued fundamentally. During the interrogation, Rolf, also known as El Shalon, confessed that he was the individual who shot and killed Abril. Ultimately, he pleaded guilty, stating that Juan Carlos had offered him $10,000 to commit the crime. He detailed how Juan Carlos had contacted him while still in pretrial detention. Over the phone, Juan provided Abril's address in Mexico City, along with instructions on how to perform surveillance on her and execute the crime. Furthermore, Juan assured him that a gun would be waiting for him in Monterrey. Rolf recounted going to Monterrey expecting to receive the firearm. However, no one reached out to him for several days. He then returned to his residence in Mexico City and did not hear from Juan Carlos again until Juan's release from prison. Upon his release, Juan contacted Rolf with updated plans. Now wanted Abril killed in Mexico City since he had managed to lure her there. Due to procedural rules, these cases couldn't be consolidated. Thus, they were divided into separate hearings. The initial trial focused solely on Rodolfo Daniel Valdez, the direct perpetrator, and Juan Carlos Rodriguez. Subsequent trials would involve the other accused parties. In August 2022, the first round of court proceedings commenced. During these sessions, the prosecutor's office presented testimonies from 28 witnesses and 14 pieces of expert evidence. Rolf El Shalon detailed how he planned and executed the murder and once again pleaded guilty. On May 19, 2023, the court found Rodolfo Daniel Valdez and Juan Carlos Rodriguez guilty of committing femicide and sentenced them each to 52 years in prison. Additionally, they were ordered to pay 56,000 Mexican pesos, approximately $30,000 in damages. Following their conviction, they were transferred to a pretrial detention center to begin their sentences. The Abril family publicly announced their intention to appeal Rodolfo's sentence. They considered it too lenient, given his direct involvement in her death. Further complicating matters regarding other defendants. In October 2014, a judge decided to split the trials of 4 defendants: Juan Carlos Maldonado, Juan Baldra, Eli Carnal, Amada Viente Rodriguez, and Garcia Alicia Flores into separate hearings. Prosecutors opposed this decision due to concerns it would prolong the legal process and incur additional costs since each defendant would need to testify multiple times. Abril's tragic fate deeply unsettled not only her family, but also society at large in Mexico. Just when it seemed justice was within reach through these trials, they resumed yet again under distressing circumstances surrounding her demise. According to reconstructed events, after one such court hearing, Abril entered a car with her children and legal counsel en route back home via Monterrey Airport, where an assassin on motorcycle ambushed them at an intersection near their route, opening fire specifically targeting her head, while miraculously sparing most occupants inside, except grazing one's limb incidentally. Despite transporting Abril alive, hospital's efforts ended vainly, succumbing injuries 6 hours arriving tragic incident shockwaves through community. Especially Javier brother, urgent quest resolve misconceptions pervading suspicions, implicate, released prisoner officially. However, authorities declared unknown identity, intent shooter impeded, qualifying categorization femicide, necessary apprehension sought. That's why this case was classified simply as a murder, and the police launched an investigation to gather all necessary evidence to consider it a femicide. Abril's friend took to social media to discuss the situation, accusing Juan Carlos. This accusation led to her account being deleted. Abril's family feared that this man would go unpunished for his actions. They sought public attention through social media as well. Abril passed away on a day commemorating the fight against gender-based violence. Her death took on added significance because of this. The family organized numerous protests and marches in her honor, demanding justice. Social media users began discussing how Abril had expressed her fear many times and how authorities ignored her pleas for help. Amid their grief and frustration, Abril's family and friends held a funeral in Monterrey with a mass at the Bonito Flores Chapel. Dozens came to extend condolences and honor Abril's memory, also demanding justice. The procession moved to the Pantheon Garden in Los Angeles for the burial. Abril's case highlighted issues around gender-based violence, especially those involving judges releasing men who attacked women. Ex-husband Juan Carlos was released after appeals, which allowed him to bring Abril to Mexico City unimpeded, leading to her death. The Mexican General Prosecutor's Office initiated an investigation against judges Carlos Trillo Rodriguez, Federico Mosa Gonzalez, and Hector Jimenez Lopez for enabling Juan Carlos's release from prison. Members of the former president's party also got involved. Andrés Manuel López Obrador urged the removal of Judge Mosca in the Chamber of Deputies due to his involvement in a controversial case where he freed a doctor accused of disrespecting a patient in a public hospital. Charges were downgraded from femicide to sexual violence, leading to his release. During the scandal surrounding Abril's case on November 29th, Rafael Gara, president of Mexico City's Supreme Court, temporarily suspended all judges involved in Juan Carlos's case. Claudia Sheinbaum, head of government for Mexico City, confirmed an investigation into Abril's case as femicide was underway. If proven that Juan Carlos was responsible, judges involved could face consequences. Local and international media reported that despite evidence against him, Juan was released during legal proceedings. The family announced forming the Voice of Abril, a nonprofit aimed at offering information and support for violence victims. Protests over Abril's death pushed for reclassification against Juan Carlos, so he would face attempted murder charges leading potentially to imprisonment. After being charged, Juan posted online that he wished for justice in resolving Abril's crime and expressed willingness to cooperate with police, while stating conflicts with Abril were not fatal, leading community outrage. His daughter Ana Cecilia publicly accused him of years-long physical and mental abuse towards Abril and their children too, sharing photos purportedly showing Abril hospitalized following an attack by him with a baseball bat, according to herself. Her father was a narcissistic sociopath who got out of prison by bribing officials. A few days later, amidst the ongoing investigation and protests, an arrest warrant was issued for Juan Carlos. Not due to the Abril case, but rather for violating judicial duties. He had been released on the condition he'd visit the police station weekly. However, he failed to comply. Additionally, he missed 2 court hearings. Judge Agustin Monreal Gaspar subsequently revoked his release order. During one hearing, the judge read out a letter from Juan claiming he feared for his life and hence avoided attending the hearings. He mentioned that since Abril's death, both he and his family had received threats, believing that appearing in court could lead to someone seeking revenge on him. Nonetheless, the judge did not accept this as a valid excuse and thus issued an arrest warrant. Juan was also barred from leaving the country. Meanwhile, the investigation pressed on, with authorities determined to uncover the entire truth. As part of their efforts, they came across another letter written by Juan, where he again denied any involvement in Abril's death. He asserted he never wished her harm and had no intent to kill her. He narrated his version of events from that night. According to him, they argued and Abril first picked up a knife and stabbed him in the side. He claimed hitting her with a bat was his first act of self-defense and maintained he never attempted to take her life. Naturally, this letter incensed those present at its reading. None found Juan Carlos's words credible. The investigation pointed towards Juan Carlos as the primary suspect in this matter. Furthermore, police identified at least 7 other individuals implicated in the crime against Abril after analyzing surveillance footage from nearby where these events occurred. The videos depicted 2 cars trailing Abril as she departed from the courthouse. Both drivers were communicating with the individual who ultimately fired the fatal shot at Abril's head. Post-attack footage showed all 3 vehicles speeding away from the scene together. Although identities of those involved were not established at that point, investigators concluded there was strong evidence suggesting Juan Carlos's involvement in orchestrating this crime. Investigators believed that Juan had met these individuals during his time in prison and had compensated one of them to ensure his safety. According to their findings, the people who protected him were released from prison, followed by Juan's release. Subsequently, he allegedly paid them to end Abril's life. Only Juan knew precisely Abril's route to Mexico City because he was the one who requested meeting with her. When this information came to light, no law firm wanted to represent him. Abril's family, friends, and colleagues provided all possible information to the authorities to facilitate his capture. However, a few days later, sources from the country's general prosecutor's office reported that Juan had left Mexico. They indicated that he managed to flee by crossing the border between Mexico and the United States. Mexican authorities promptly contacted Interpol to circulate information about the search for Juan Carlos, and Interpol immediately commenced their search for him. Soon enough, he was wanted by authorities in over 151 countries, determined to locate him at any cost. By late January 2024, there were no new developments in the case. 4 years have passed since Abril's tragic death without any accountability for those responsible for this crime. Her children are now living with her family on the outskirts of Mexico City, clinging to hope that justice will eventually be served. To this day, everyone is asking, where is Juan Carlos? His apprehension remains a top priority for law enforcement agencies. Abril's family has vowed not to cease their fight for justice until he is found and held accountable. Shafilea Ahmed was born on July 14, 1986, a British-Pakistani girl. Shafilea's father, Iftikhar Ahmed, originally hailed from the Gujarat district of Pakistan. At the age of about 20 to 22, Iftikhar moved to Britain for employment. While staying there for a while and during work, Iftikhar falls in love with a foreign girl and marries her. Soon he becomes a father, but when he returns to Pakistan and informs his family about his marriage, they do not accept it. Then Iftikhar's family puts heavy pressure on him to marry another Pakistani girl. Despite Iftikhar's resistance, he eventually succumbs to his family's insistence and he marries a Pakistani girl named Farzana. After the marriage, Iftikhar returns to Britain and, after revealing the truth to his first wife, divorces her. Then, after some time, Iftikhar calls his second wife, Farzana, to Britain from Pakistan. After coming to Britain, Iftikhar starts living with his wife in the city of Bradford in West Yorkshire. It is here that on July 14, 1986, Shafilea Ahmed is born. Shortly after Shafilea's birth, the family moves to the town of Warrington in Britain. It is here that Shafilea completes her early education. During this time, 2 more daughters are born in the family, and Iftikhar's family grows larger. Although this family resides in Britain, on holidays, Iftikhar used to take his wife and all his children to Pakistan for vacation. Now the year had come, 2003, and by now Shafilea Ahmed had also turned 17 and was studying the law. Her dream was to become a lawyer. When Shafilea and the other children have a break on February 18th, 2003, Shafilea comes to Pakistan with her family for vacation. During their trip to Pakistan, this family also participates in a family wedding ceremony. However, just a few days after this wedding, a major incident occurs with Shafilea. She accidentally drinks fennel floor cleaner. Actually, fennel is commonly used in Asia for cleaning floors in homes. Now, because fennel is made by mixing some chemicals and soap, drinking it causes severe pain in Shafilea's throat. The reason behind Shafilea drinking fennel is initially said to be because her parents pressured her into arranged marriage with a Pakistani boy. Because of this pressure, Shafilea drank the fennel intending to end her life. But later, her parents claimed that someone had poured fennel into an old bottle of water, kept in the same bottle usually used for drinking water, and in the darkness of the night, Shafilea mistook fennel for water and drank it. Due to this mistake, Shafilea had to endure a lot of pain. As a result, she's admitted to a hospital in Pakistan. Now, because Shafilea's injury was quite severe, she has to stay in the hospital for a long time. During this time, the holidays of other family members also end, so Iftikhar takes his 2 children and wife back to Britain, while Shafilea has to stay in Pakistan for treatment. However, shortly after, Iftikhar arranges for Shafilea's return as well, and on May 27, 2003, Shafilea returns to Britain. Straight from the airport, Shafilea is admitted to a hospital for treatment through an ambulance. After several months of treatment, Shafilea's throat heals considerably, and now she rejoins college. Alongside college, she also starts a part-time job. But on September 18, 2003, a college teacher notices that Shafilea Ahmed hasn't been coming to college for the past week. Attempts are made to contact Shafilea via phone, but she cannot be reached. When teacher asked about this to Shafilea's parents, they reveal that Shafilea has not been home for the past week. Their daughter has been missing for a week, and her parents hadn't filed any complaints about her yet, which strikes Shafilea's teacher as very strange. Immediately after this, they inform the police. Upon filing the case, a police team arrives at Shafilea's house for investigation, and questioning begins with her parents. Shafilea's parents say that they last saw Shafilea at their home on September 11, 2003, and since then, she hasn't been seen. Upon this, the police ask, "When your daughter has been missing for a week, why haven't you filed a complaint with the police yet?" To this, Shafilea's parents respond, "This is not the first time Shafilea has been missing from home for a few days. It has happened several times before." To confirm this, when the police check the records, it is revealed that Shafilea has been missing from home several times in the past. The first time was when Shafilea was only 12 years old. She went missing with her younger sister on March 10, 1998. Because of this, her parents had also filed a missing report for both their daughters with the police. However, at that time, Shafilea returned home with her sister as evening approached. According to records, Shafilea ran away from home for the second time on November 25, 2002. Once again, her father, Iftikhar Ahmad, filed a missing report for his daughter. After extensive searching, Shafilea was found by the police sitting in a park. According to police records, for the third time, Shafilea left home with a friend on February 3, 2003. This time, Shafilea did not return home for 2 days, and then on February 5, 2003, she went to a safe house for orphaned people and filed a report against her parents for domestic violence and mental abuse. After the report was filed, the police officer spoke with Shafilea Ahmed and her parents, and after everything was cleared up, Shafilea returned home. After this, on February 18, 2003, Shafilea, along with her 2 sisters and parents, goes to Pakistan for a family function and disappears from there shortly after returning to Britain. Now, looking at old records, the police also suspect that Shafilea Ahmed may have gone somewhere again this time and will return home in a few days. Therefore, the police try to find Shafilea in all those places where she could have gone. However, even after a few days, the police cannot find any trace of Shafilea from anywhere. Considering Shafilea's history of running away from home before, the police show a little laziness in the investigation this time. After this, some local media start making an issue out of the police's laziness. As a result, demand for a thorough search for Shafilea increases at the local level. Due to the progress in the Shafilea missing case, the police accelerate their investigation. Subsequently, they discover numerous poems written by Shafia at her home, and there was still no evidence in the case of Shafilea Ahmed. The police were engaged in efforts to locate Shafilea. Meanwhile, floods occurred in the famous Kent River, flowing from the Sedgwick area of Britain. When the floods were under control, the body of a girl were found in extremely poor condition on the banks of this river. The distance between the place where the body was found and where Shafilea Ahmed had disappeared was 70 miles. But still, the police have doubts whether this corpse could be Shafilea's. However, to confirm this, DNA samples are collected from the dead body and then matched with the DNA of Iftikhar and Fazana. In this case, a major twist occurs when a body washed away in the flood matches with the DNA samples of Iftikhar. This meant that the body washed away from the river was not someone else's but Shafilea Ahmed's, meaning in the search for Shafilea Ahmed, whom the police had been looking for the past year, now reaches the police itself in the form of a corpse. Now, the biggest question in front of the police was who and why murdered Shafilea Ahmed. However, even before the statements and actions of corpse's parents, there were doubts, and in 2003, these two, along with 5 others, were arrested. Therefore, once again, Shafilea's parents are arrested and questioned. The trial of this case is also going on, but even this time, no allegations can be proven against them, which leads the police to release them again. However, after that, the police detain some other suspects and proceed with the investigation against all of them. But despite many efforts, the police cannot reach the murderer. As time passes, people slowly start to forget about Shafilea Ahmed's case. Shafilea disappeared in 2003, and now it was 2010. That is, it had been 7 years since Shafilea's death. By now, Shafilea's family had also moved on from the incident and had become busy with their daily lives. But then, on August 25, 2010, a major theft occurs at Iftikhar Ahmed's house. By now, Iftikhar Ahmed's family had already become the center of attention in the city due to their daughter's disappearance. Due to this, when theft occurs in this house, it starts making headlines on the front page of newspapers. But once again, this puts heavy pressure on the police. Despite working honestly, the police quickly get involved in the search for the thief. After many days of hard work, the police make a revelation that surprises everyone. Actually, the police arrest not someone else, but Iftikhar Ahmed's daughter, Alicia Ahmed, on charges of theft in the house. In fact, Alicia was Shafilea's younger sister. According to Alicia, she didn't get as much money from home as she demanded and needed. Because of this, she orchestrated the theft of her father's money at her own home. However, the police had solved the theft case very quickly. But the police spot an opportunity here and now. They start talking to Alicia about her sister Shafilea, who disappeared many years ago, and reopen the file related to the Shafilea case. In the initial conversation, the police suspect that Alicia knows something about the disappearance of Shafilea that the world is still unaware of. The police officers try to uncover what happened with Shafilea, but Alicia refuses to cooperate with them. However, the police then tell Alicia, "You have orchestrated a theft in your own house, which could lead to a long prison sentence for you. But if you can provide any information about Shafilea that nobody else knows, your sentence could be significantly reduced." Afterwards, when Alicia reveals some details to the police, everyone is left stunned. Alicia explains, "It was not someone else but my father, Iftikhar, and my mother, Farzana Ahmed, who had beaten Shafilea Ahmad in front of all of us sisters. Then our father put polythene on her face, and due to suffocation, she was dead. Then he placed Shafilea's body in his car and threw it into the distant jungle. However, due to the flood, the body drifted to the riverbank from the jungle." According to Alicia, Iftikhar and Farzara did not like their daughter's modern lifestyle at all. On the surface, Shafilea started falling in love with a boy, and when this matter comes to light, Iftikhar and Farzana quickly try to arrange Shafilea's marriage with their preferred boy. When the family goes to Pakistan for a family function, there is an attempt to forcefully marry Shafilea to a boy there. But Shafilea refuses to marry for this reason, and she consumes fennel. After that, her health deteriorates, and her marriage does not happen either. When Shafilea returns to Britain, her family members here also insist on arranging her marriage with a boy of their choice. But when Shafilea repeatedly refuses this marriage, her father gets angry, and at first beats Shafilea in anger and then covers her face with a polythene bag, and then due to suffocation, Shafia Ahmad dies here. But immediately after this disclosure, Alicia Ahmed becomes a government witness in the case. In exchange, she is assured a minimum sentence in the theft case. However, based on Alicia's statement on September 2, 2010, Farzana and Iftikhar are arrested, and then a case of their own daughter's murder is pursued against them. Both of them remain in jail for several months after the arrest. However, nearly a year later, on September 15, 2011, they are granted bail by the Manchester Crown Court. In the further investigation, the police gather some crucial evidence, and based on that evidence, the trial of this case begins in the Chester Crown Court on May 21, 2012. Initially, Farzana and Iftikhar continue to deny their involvement in their daughter's murder, but when Farzana begins to suspect that she is being framed for her own daughter's murder, she finally accepts in court on July 9, 2012, that Shafilea Ahmed's murder was not committed by anyone else but by Iftikhar Ahmed himself. In her statement, Farzana also reveals that she tried to stop Iftikhar, but instead, Iftikhar beat and threatened her family, saying, "If any of you ever talk about this to anyone, your fate will be just like Shafilea's." Now, 2 witnesses had testified against Iftikhar Ahmed. Besides, the police who gather evidence also indicate that it was Iftikhar Ahmed who murdered Shafilea, then threw her body far into the jungle. However, a natural disaster struck that area, and with the floodwaters, Shafilea's body drifted and reached the riverbank on its own. After a lengthy trial in August 2012, Farzana and Iftikhar are found guilty of murdering their own daughter and disposing of her body after the murder. They are then sentenced to 25 years each. It is also proven in court that this was an honor killing. Following this verdict, every year on July 14th, Shafilea Ahmed's birthday, the National Day of Memory for Victims of Honor Killings, is observed in her memory. So with this, the case of Shafilea Ahmed comes to a close. However, perhaps nature also desired that Shafilea Ahmed receive justice and her killers be punished. Therefore, albeit late, Shafilia's parents, her murderers, are also sentenced. If you appreciate our efforts, like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Thank you.